What?
Sexuality.
Mean to me?
Yeah.
The time was just liking girls and small teenage stuff. Things.
Sexuality.
Sexuality.
Yeah.
Okay. What is it to me? Incredibly frustrated with myself, and it was just something I was very foreign to until I reached a certain age and I discovered all these things.
I don't know, like expectations of sex, like, I don't really know where I'm going with this anymore, but
It is scary though, in the beginning, because you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what the hell you're doing.
it's interesting, like, thinking about how I was raised, thinking, like, about sex, blah, 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 and then taking this femme theory class now. Like, it's a philosophy class, it's about, like, critiquing.
Right.
And you critique the way that, like, male sexuality has been made so hyper, that, and female sexuality has been made so subdued.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And, like, it's not supposed to be talked about when you're a girl. Like, it's... At least that's how I felt growing up. Like, as a girl, like, you were supposed to be, like, keep that a secret and, like, maintain your morals and everything, whereas, like, the guys were always...
Sex was never a taboo thing, because at that time I was in the U.S. and I feel like it's a pretty liberal thing here.
Not a lot of people had sex. I mean, when I was 12, 13, once we were 14, 15, some people did. And that kind of changed things because once you got where I grew up, it was like middle school and high school. So once you got into high school, you were around people who were 17, 18 and kind of knew more about what sex was. But at the time, sexuality was just meant like you liked someone and it was always heterosexual. And you dated someone, even for a day or 2 weeks.
Coming from a Senegalese culture, well, it's very like, there's a lot of machismo, what's the word? Macho-ness. That's like, yeah, machismo that's encouraged like for like men. Sort of like, boys don't cry, don't hang around your mother too much.
Mama's boy.
I hung around my mom a lot, so that too. But then, like, once I got older, I started saying like, fuck all that shit, you know? So that's what's curse.
I didn't know because, I never had the conversation with my parents.
Okay.
So I had to like figure it out myself,
I know it wasn't something that was talked about. It was a taboo subject in India while growing up. And the first time I even learned about sex was in IG when we took it in biology class. And even then we just learned about like the physical aspect of it, not even like what sexuality meant to a person like emotionally. And I think that that's something I've figured out more coming to college.
Well, coming from a Latin American culture, everything's very traditional in the sense of relationships, but in terms of say developing one's sexuality, everything's very casual. Since our Latin, like as many people may perceive, Latin culture is very touchy-feely, and it's something that we grow up to know as a very common thing. And like a hookup culture doesn't exist because it's so embedded into the culture. So that's basically it.
I don't know, I remember like when I first asked my mom about sex too, like she like completely like shut down and was like, whoa, like why are you asking me this question? I remember I was like, yeah, I was in 8th grade I think too when I, and then yeah, she just got like all weirded out and was like, we don't talk about these things at home. And then so I remember like the next day, like I came home from school and like there was just this giant book that had everything to do with like a woman and her sexuality. Like
I grew up in Nashville in the South, and for most of my childhood my mom actually took me to Bible school and was in church and everything. And so I had this very I think sort of conservative conception of sexuality, was, if not on board with the idea that like sex should be during marriage, was on board with the idea that sex should be about love and the abstinence only education that you got. I remember actually being told, it was like, this woman with like a red paper heart said like, this is your heart, and every time you have sex with somebody you tear off a piece of your heart and give it to somebody else, and if you have a lot of sex before marriage you won't have any of your heart left to give to your wife. And I was like, what?
I don't know, I feel like it's something you figure out as you grow and you determine what you prefer, and it's kind of a hard thing because it's such a society doesn't give you a definition of how to figure it out.
Yeah.
So you have to like find a way to figure out, like no one can tell you who you are on a scale of like masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
I don't know, when people ask me what like my sexuality is, I don't know how to answer that question. There's like their sexual accent, like
Yeah.
what does that mean? Is that like an identity? How do you make that into an identity?
How does one go about figuring things out in terms of what their sexual orientation is?
You don't have to figure it out. I don't think you ever have to figure it out. I think it's ridiculous that like gay people have to come out to their parents, so to speak. Because it's not like people have to be like, oh yeah, mom, I'm straight. So, I mean, for me, I still haven't figured out my sexuality. Like I said, it's fluid, and I don't think it's necessary to figure it out. You like who you like.